We'll see.
We'll see. Okay, crack straight on. Apologies for absence.
We'll see.
Oh, wow. Declarations of registered and non-registered dischargeable pecuniary interests and non-registrable interests. Where's for? Where's against? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're right.
Where's against? Any abstentions? Okay. And full council meeting on the 7th of July 2022. Seconded. Okay, where's for? All those against? And abstentions? Thank you. Committee minutes, to receive and note the minutes of the committee meetings. So we'll start with the planning committee, 8th of June 2022.
Vote accept.
Seconded. All those for? All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. And planning committee, 22nd of June 22.
Vote accept.
Seconded. Okay, gone for. Anyone against? Any abstentions? And the oversight committee, 23rd of June 22. Closing accept. I'll second that. All those for? All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Recommendation from the minutes to consider and agree the oversight committee to recommend to full council that 100k be allocated from reserves for the refurbishment of the remaining areas of the Ben Coolen Play Park, subject to quotes. Facilities manager to come back to oversight committee with the options. Oversight committee to be delegated to proceed with the project. Does anybody want to say anything on that one?
Okay, well, I'll say something on that. We've at Oversight Committee we've been talking about Ben Coolen Play Park and some of the issues that are appearing with the area called Katie's Corner. We've agreed with the facilities manager to do running repairs on that bit, which has now been done. But I think the general feeling is that we need an overhaul of that area of Ben Coolen Play Park. And there's some options around potentially moving the Katie's Corner bit down to the lower bit, putting trim trails, those kind of things, which this OHD is talking to suppliers about. So that's the kind of gist of the request, really. And obviously his view is that it's going to need a sort of a maximum budget. 100,000 to be available, although obviously, as it says, subject to quote.
Would there be additional facilities going into the park then?
Yes. Well, depending on consultation and depending on quotes and all the rest of it, got some ideas, as I say, around putting a trim trail in the part where Katie's Corner is, so that's kind of an adult exercise area.
All of those, yeah.
And also putting in more benches and putting in some cycle racks and that kind of stuff.
There was an option there for, I forget what it's called now, multi-use sports facilities, where you've got the football goal and the mugger, that's it, yeah, where you've got various different, a little pitch with various different options.
I think we've been moving away from that, from the actual locations, but I think the important bit is that the smaller children's play area, the thinking is at the moment that will move down, so it's level with the rest of the play area. You don't end up having kind of split responsibilities, and obviously that's the area which we didn't refurb when we did the main park a couple of 3 years ago. I think that budget is more than ample, unless there's something very unexpected or something very major happens. I think Steve's thinks that's the
I think
that's
the
the working
ambition of the oversight committee is that there's some consultation with the users of the play park.
Yeah, good.
To try and find out what they actually prefer. And also the theming, whether it's pirates or spaceships or, that's great. Exactly.
Anybody else? Okay, so I will make the proposal that we accept that recommendation. Secondly. Okay, everybody for? That's unanimous. Nobody against, nobody abstaining? Perfect. Thank you. Okay, correspondence received.
Yes, we've had a number of emails of thanks for grants that have been awarded. We had a letter from a resident raising a number of issues, including the fact that he didn't have access to email. So we can assure people that they can still write to us and visit us in the office. Not all the matters are in the council's remit, but I'll be consulting with the mayor and deputy mayor to make a response. And also, just to note, we today, I haven't circulated this, received a letter of apology from a young man for damage done to the flower display and with the payment of costs. And we will continue to work with the police and school to identify and pursue those who cause damage, but we would much prefer that everyone would respect and enjoy the facilities provided.
Okay.
Is that the CCTV?
That's the CCTV, yes. People are recognisable and have been recognised.
Okay. Moving on to what would normally be the mayor's report. Obviously, we have no mayor here this time, so I've just got a couple of things to point out to everybody. Obviously, we've had some resignations which have created some vacancies recently. So we've got 3 resignations and 3 separate vacancies which are being dealt with. The first one is being dealt with later on this evening. The second one is for the Bude Board, which is now open for nominations. There will be an election for the Bude Board. Nominations for candidacy are open until 4 PM on Friday the 22nd of July, so it's quite a short time frame for anybody that wants to put themselves forward for election for the Bude Board. Cornwall Council run the process in its entirety, but Bude-Stratton Town Council staff in the office do have the necessary papers and forms for anybody that wants to drop in and get them. The nomination papers that you collect unfortunately have to be hand submitted to Cornwall Council in Truro, but on this occasion you have got a one-day only thing on the 20th of June, July, where they can be dropped into this room here on the 20th of July between 10 and 1 and 2 and 4. To save you having to go all the way down to Truro. The other vacancy in the Stratton ward has had a call for election published, so we're waiting to find out if that's going to be election or co-option. Electors in the Stratton ward have until the 29th of July to request an election. If 10 or more electors call for an election, it will be held at the latest by the 4th of October, so we don't know how that one's going to go quite yet. So that's those 2, and then finally the housing survey is still open until the 1st of August. Turnout or response rate doesn't seem to be quite so high as consultations that we've had previously about the downs and so on. So anything that we can do, councillors or public, to kind of encourage everybody to come back on the housing survey would be greatly appreciated. We haven't got that long left, just another couple of weeks until that closes. That's your mayor's report. Opportunity for formal councillors. I don't believe we have any formal councillors today. No. Key issues from lead councillors. I don't think we've had anything in advance. Any lead councillors want to talk about anything? Kelly?
Yeah, I was just going to say a little bit about Pride. I went along and it was pretty spectacular. As most of you know, it rained a lot during the day, so we had not very much time to get everything inside the Park House Centre, and they did it amazingly, and I've never seen the Park House Centre look so good, so colourful, so full, so joyous. It was brilliant. Out of all Cornwall Prides, Bude's main focus is primary education, and they had a really lovely area with books and seating and toys and fun and games, which we took a lot of advantage of. I think my daughter was in there for hours. And it was a lot of fun. It was really inclusive, and it made me really proud to be from Bude and what we've achieved there. So yeah, it was really good.
I'd also add to that, I've been up to the Wilds for a few of their events recently, and the Pride team have been doing their community outreach at the Wilds as well, so I've seen that happening out in the wider community, and that's been really fantastic as well. What they're doing is really good.
Wow.
Simon?
Yeah, just a quick one, because the Environment and Climate Change Forum was this week. Normally it's the week after full council, so you have to wait for the update, but we had one this week because obviously the council meetings moved around. Just a couple of quick things really. We're able to now move ahead on the appointment of the Carbon and Energy Officer. So we've agreed and tweaked the job description from what was originally on the books. And then the other thing is so as a result of, or sort of following on from No Mo May, we've seen fantastic array of flowers and stuff appearing on the downs and also out at Stamford Hill and Treefield site. So I think going forward we've had really positive feedback from the public, and working with Steve we'll go ahead and kind of try and get some professional or at least expert advice on a proper land management plan for those areas that kind of balances amenity and biodiversity, and so that will be taking shape over the next few months. And I think we had the Bright Futures Festival 2 weekends ago now, and again, Sean's wishing I was born to play, had loads of ideas, loads of suggestions, again loads of positive feedback on the green spaces and the No Mo May, and we'll take some of those suggestions through to look at whether they kind of align with our environmental policy and our objectives, and consider some of those for trialling. One that we thought might be quite promising is looking at kind of recycling bins, or some separation of rubbish. So you see the bins in town full of recyclable glass and plastics. We know some places they are able to collect that in public bins as separate waste streams. So we'll have a little look at that maybe.
Thanks, Simon.
I went along to the Cancer Cafe on Monday. Fantastic people, the organisers and the people there, talked to so many interesting people. They were really disappointed in the council because it was brought up with a councillor about the eco-cars, and they're quite disappointed that the connection has gone and there's nothing being done about it, about transport for cancer patients through the council. They said they've tried to get hold of a counsellor and they're not responding, unfortunately. So it's something that we really need to look at if possible, because that is important. I spoke to one chap that is terminal, but he had to go to Exeter for radiotherapy every day for 4 weeks. And the toll it takes on the body for the travelling, not just the treatment, is horrendous. So I'll be bringing that up with when I'm collecting the information for the network panel. And I have also been invited to go along to the PCN meeting, which involves all the doctors, including the county, and the side and the nurses, etc. So I can get their view on things as well. So it's not just the community view, it's actually the staff, which again is pretty awesome. I probably did mention, possibly, that I am collecting information regarding healthcare in the area to return to the network panel. We're hoping to have a meeting at the end of the summer, so I need really a lot of help to spread the word. And I need, even if it's 2 lines, doesn't matter what, whether it's good or bad, it's if you've had an experience with the MIU, the 111 service, and what you think the area needs, because they have said they will listen. This is the network, the Cornwall Foundation Trust actually asked for our opinion, viewed opinion on what we want. We had a big chance with Stratton, and we achieved that. This is bigger, so I really would like some help, if possible, please. There was something else I was going to say, I can't remember. There is a fete at Stratton Hospital on Saturday from I think 2 till 4, so that would be ideal if you could possibly join that. That's what I was going to say. I have actually been working alongside the Stratton Friends, which is really, really nice because they've really involved me, and where everything's been sort of cut off a bit, they have involved me and they've allowed me to have a table at the fete, so I'm going to be going up there and trying to get the opinions again of the public, which is really exciting again. So, okay, that's me.
Okay, so the cancer cafe that you were talking about and the request there, is that a link that you've got now and you can start kind of talking to that and bringing that in here?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that they were dealing with the council that was involved with the co-cars, so whether it would be better if that was to continue, I'm quite prepared to do that, but I don't know anything about the co-cars.
Okay.
Quite willing to, really not a problem, but I do have that connection now.
Right, just to mention, I do have a call booked with the director of Co-Cars tomorrow morning,
Ooh.
so I will at least drop that into the conversation. I don't know.
We don't know how it's going to work yet, but it's just at that start stage. I'm thinking how we can work it.
Smoothly done.
No, I know.
Just noticed.
Okay, any other new councillors? Points? Anything? Okay. Thank you, everybody. Public participation. So, for the public present to make any comments concerning the business of the current council.
Yeah, mate.
Yep.
Just
Lorraine?
now do you? You said about the councillor not bothered. If you lot had half as much interest in the rest of us in view, the young, the old, the ill, as you did all these guys and whatever you'd be a darn sight better. You've done everything for them and nothing for anybody else. How much does it cost to hire the parking centre?
Not sure. Don't know.
Well, is it free?
No, not commercially, no.
Well, why were they giving it for free? Well, how much do you have to pay to use the castle grounds?
I'm not sure about that yet.
Well, either somebody knows what's going on around here?
Well, the PO, like, what happens is it's going to rain, you get to go inside, so you don't actually book, it's not like a commercial booking park out. Because the event was going to be held outdoors, and it was a wet day.
Yeah, that isn't the
You
question.
get-
I
you
asked
get-
how much
you
it
get
costs to
the-
hire the castle ground.
Well, I don't know that.
Well, that's what
I
I'm
do
just
know,
asking.
I do know that's why the event was inside, but actually.
Can I talk about the tail? Does the clerk know? How much does it cost for an organisation to use the castle grounds?
Castle Grounds, I believe, is about £108 for a full day session. I think, but there are different rates for different levels. of
So do charities get it for nothing?
no, there is a charity rate.
What's that?
So I think it's about the £25 or £30 a session. They're split into sessions.
So that would be what, 25, 25, 25?
It's around that level.
So why did this guy not, or pride lot, as you call it, get it for nothing.
There's a resolution.
You're totally discriminated against everybody else in Bude. The military, the veterans, the war dead, the Cornish people, you discriminated against them left, right and centre. You just ripped our flags down. You left the Ukrainian flag up, I noticed. You did everything for this lot and nothing for anybody else.
Okay. Noted, thank you.
Right. And the other question is, what the hell's pansexual?
I'm not sure if that's for here, really.
Well, it's on the bloody form, that's why I'm asking.
On the form?
On the form here. I've never heard of it.
We have asked, what I say, we, Corn Council for some reason have asked why gender questions, sexual orientation questions in regards to housing. So
I mean, I might
I think that's the
pansexual,
point
I
we're
mean, of course.
making. I'm not going to comment any further because I don't know either.
They're the standard requirements that Cornwall Council put onto their surveys.
Yeah, but I did see, somebody else did mention it to me, why do you want to know that? And that was my answer, yes, I didn't like the question. But,
I'll have to go and ask the council.
yeah.
That's all right.
Thanks. Anybody else? Yes, please.
Yeah, if I could just make a comment to the lady talking about transport for cancer patients. I'm not connected to Age Concern, but I am aware that Age Concern had a considerable legacy that is going to enable them to, I won't say charge nothing, but charge a reduced rate for transport for cancer patients, so it may be worth the council contacting them.
That is actually one of the Cancer Cafe. So yeah, there is funding there, but there's just not enough. There's not enough drivers. So it's just, but they just charge fuel. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Thanks everyone. Moving on. Okay, so to consider applications for co-option to fill a casual vacancy. So we have two candidates who have made an application to fill the vacancy. The way I'd like to proceed with this is to, if it's okay with the two candidates, to ask them to just say a few words, introduce themselves. Obviously we've seen their application forms and had some details about why they're applying and what they're applying for and so on. So if the two candidates are okay just to say a few words, and then we'll get some clarifications if there are any clarifications, and then move to a vote for that. Okay. So I'd like to start with you.
I have prepared a few words. I was imagining a larger venue, enunciating grandly, but never mind, I will attempt to deliver. I've always been rubbish at job interviews. They say you should try and present yourself as a perfect fit with the organisation. I've always been hopeless at doing that. If you have a look at my application, you'll see that I have a skill set, a knowledge base, and hopefully personal qualities that could make me a half-decent councillor. Whether I'm a good fit with you, well, that's for you to decide. If you want a cosmopolitan figure, well, that's not me. I've lived in Bude all my life. I've never felt the necessity to go anywhere else. If you want a colossus of the local business scene or cultural or social scene, that's not me. I'm a widower. I live quietly. I work in domiciliary care. I take people to the bathroom, get them up in the morning, put them to bed at night. I think it's an important role, but I'm not a mover and shaker. If you want somebody who's never made a mistake, who has always been circumspect, who has never voiced a controversial opinion, that's not me. I have strong views. I am not perfect by any means. If you can find a better facilitator for what this council wishes to achieve, if you can find a better steward for council resources, and if you can find a better, more eloquent and more effective advocate for Bude-Stratton, and particularly for the residents of Heel Ward, then appoint that person. Just kick me into touch. But if you can find a role for an old bay from Bude who knows this community, who understands local government, and who loves this town, warts and all, then I would be honoured to have a seat around the table. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I understand. I find it very difficult to talk when I'm sitting down. It seems to do with my job, I think. When I wrote my application that I wish to serve our community, I suspected that actually all of you would probably say the same thing. Everyone on this council was elected with a powerful mandate and have made great strides towards doing things in new ways. So what can I bring to the council that will make Bude-Stratton a better place? My youngest daughter is going to university, and she turned to me the other day, because she's had lots of thoughts in her mind about changing her life and moving on, and said something actually I could have said myself. I was born somewhere else, and I've lived in other places, but this is the place I would come back to. This is the place I call home. Now, your own vision statement says, working together we strive to make Bude-Stratton a great place to live and visit. And I do believe that Bude-Stratton is a great place to live, but not for everyone. Nearly a quarter of us live in poverty, and the cost of living crisis is pushing that number ever higher. There are divisions in our community driven by these tough times and made worse by a mistrust in politics and elected representatives. Some people say that politics has no place in local government, and that's a great pity. I think they've lost faith in their ability to have an active say in things that affect their own lives. Our own government's definition of politics is that it is the act of securing or opposing a change in policy or decisions. Well, I would put it to you that everyone here, in every meeting, are involved in politics. And your commitment to consult and listen to the public's views is an act of politics. It makes us free. It brings us together. The communities of Heel Ward need someone to represent them who understands their concerns from both a rural and an urban perspective. When my parents moved onto a new estate, they never forgot our promises of a primary school, a doctor's surgery and a green children's play area were broken. I now live in a rural environment, and I also understand the frustrations and sometimes hidden issues facing people in this ward that can seem quite distant from Bude town centre. And I would play my full part as a Heel councillor, representing all the people from that ward. If appointed, I would prioritise engaging with dialogue and meet the councillor with them. But the issues that affect Bude-Stratton people do not stop at a ward or at town boundaries. We are stewards of this council and this place at this particular time, especially when we make decisions to secure our natural environment. I've worked with all of you to make the best decisions for our communities now and for those who come after us. There are particular things that I have an interest in and would want to promote. One is a Bude-Stratton Youth Council, and as an organiser of Bude Haven School Council, I feel I have the skills to support its creation. Our young people are living through tough times of their own. We've all heard reports about alienated youth causing trouble in the place they call their home. We need to give them a chance to responsibly engage in democratic processes, to give them a voice in how their town works. They need to become the stewards of their own futures. I've already described in my application the skills I would bring to the council. But you know, I'm just as likely to make mistakes as you are. And, like you, I would admit my mistakes and seek to find a way to correct them. Or reflect how to do it different the next time. Put quite simply, I want to work together with you to make Bude-Stratton a great place to live and visit and come back to for all of us. I feel that I have the experience, the attitude and certainly the commitment to be a councillor who would benefit the council and all our communities. I do hope you think so too.
Thank you. Okay, does anybody have anything they want to be clarified or anything they want to say before we move to a vote for that? John?
Yeah, I just want to start by saying thank you to both of you on like a personal level. I'm not speaking for anyone else, for your kind of amazing letters and things that you've said here tonight. I believe that either one of you would bring an immense amount of value to council, but with that in mind, and I'm only speaking from my personal perspective, I have quite a strong aversion to the process of co-option. I don't necessarily believe that it's something that we should be proactively participating in, and it's a great shame that 10 signatures couldn't come from the award, because obviously 10 signatures for a tiny ward is a much larger percentage of that slice than it would be for you, so it's like 10% of the population have to physically write a letter and send that off to Cornwall Council, whereas equivalent, if it happens in Bude, it's like 0.1% of the population, so it's a little bit different, and for me that's the sticking point. It's something that doesn't really sit right with me. Sorry, I'm just going to read some stuff because I have to like talk and then like get rid of my notes. Basically I've written down some thoughts earlier, but I kind of feel in my heart that co-option serves the functionality of elite systems without significant political or financial costs. So it feels like a little bit of a shorthand solution when we could be challenging that status quo from within. So we could be lobbying Cornwall Council to change the ward boundaries to make it more equitable and a little bit fairer, because for me it feels like the default setting should be to go for an election rather than the default setting being a co-option and then it being a huge ask of the general public to actually write in and make that process happen, because for everyone sitting around here it might be possible to write a letter, but for lots of people that have busy lives, they may not be apathetic, but they may just not have the time to physically partake in that process. So yeah, basically it just feels like a bit of a retrograde step, and I would really love us to be striving towards making those structural changes to create new opportunities rather than, as I said before, shorthand solutions. It's a bit of a deal breaker for me, and for that reason I would really like to ask for a recorded vote, because I want us to be holding ourselves as a council to account much harder than anyone else can in our community. That's what we need to be doing, I think, if we're really going to be trying to make things better for the future. And I desperately want to be part of a council that questions why we do things in a certain way. So to go straight back to the start, either one of you, amazing. I thought what you had written down and what you said in front of us this evening, really inspiring. You would make great councillors, but I personally feel averse to the process. So that's my piece of what I would say. So
Thanks, Sean. Mike?
I agree. I'm deeply uncomfortable with this process. I've watched the lyrics about it online many times. I'm sure I've got a few people in the room who've finally seen my comments. And yes, Sean hit the nail very firmly on the head. Asking 150 people to supply 10 letters when indeed you would ask 5,000 is just obscenely unfair. And I'm uncomfortable making that decision on their behalf. We're going to have to make that decision because that's where we are. I will second what Sean said. I think both candidates have presented very good, compelling things. I think, for me, both would make very good councillors. I have to say, I think you would add more of what is already the prominent demographic around this table. I think Mr. Colwell would actually add a voice that represents an underrepresented demographic around this council. And he alluded to that in his speech. So if I had to pick something to separate you, it wouldn't be on the quality of your application or your ability, it would be on who you represented within Bude. The working class representation on this table is quite low, to me, there's a couple of others. the elderly community around this table, the Cornish community around this table, are not very well represented. So I think if I had to separate the two candidates, I would lean towards Kevin solely on the basis that he represents an underrepresented demographic within Bude.
All right, thanks, Mike. I suspect this is something that we've all been wrestling with to some degree or another. This process and what we're being asked to do. Lots of us have said for a long time that we're wanting to be open, transparent, and all the rest of it. And co-option doesn't sit particularly comfortably with any of us, I don't think. But as it is, this is the end result of the democratic process. It feels undemocratic, but I think it's the democratic process that is imperfect, and here we are, having to make these choices because we don't have much of an option left because of the way things have fallen. Is my personal take on it. I agree with everything everybody's saying, but yeah, okay. Paul.
Yeah, two eloquent speeches there, but we don't have to sit and accept. We could contact the county and say it's undemocratic and unfair. They won't listen to us.
I'm afraid we're operating under the law, as it were, and the law sets out very clearly in terms of there's a process for calling an election. If that is passed, as it were, and it doesn't, and the election isn't called, the only way the council can fill that seat is and until the next scheduled election in 2024, is it? You can't petition anyone under. You can petition for a law change separately, but the act is that it's incumbent on the council to co-opt as soon as reasonably practicable.
So we have no redress to what our masters tell us?
Not directly.
Okay. How unusual. Yeah.
Okay.
The chat. John's hands up.
Sean.
I just want to riff off that point. There's no redress, but we could choose to not choose anyone, and that is an option. I just think, for me, it feels really powerful to make that statement that actually we don't want to continue co-opting people because that's problematic, and that is an option. So it's not that we necessarily actually have to choose someone.
Can I ask Keith, is that legal?
My advice to you is that you are duty bound to co-opt to fill seats. Otherwise, you are leaving a seat vacant, and therefore you're not having any representation for that ward. Whereas, the Local Government Act actually says that our duty is to co-opt as soon as practically possible. Now, I don't think if you have candidates in front of you that you would say.
No, that's fine. It's okay to disagree. It's good to disagree.
Okay. Jack.
So could you say very quickly, I do agree with what everyone's saying. I'm absolutely torn, and I don't really want to vote because I think both candidates will be extremely good. And I just wanted to say, whoever doesn't get elected, I would implore you to please stand for the other seats, because in an ideal world, I think we would probably like to have both of you.
Thanks, Jackie. Just give me 1 second, Tom.
We do allow. It's not a debate.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, Tom. Yes.
I don't want to get involved in the debate, and I'm not going to comment on any of the candidates. I just wanted to clarify one thing: is that it is not 10 letters. 1 letter signed by 10 people suffices. So perhaps for future reference, if the council wanted to make clear that anybody wishing to sign a letter, just contact them. It doesn't have to be 10 separate letters.
Thanks, Tom. That's a really good shout. Thanks, Tom. Okay. I think we shall move to a vote. Recorded vote has been requested. I've got a list, I think, of everybody here in alphabetical order. let me just confirm it's Jamie you're sending?
Right.
Right. There's a W. Okay, Owen. Go on.
Just a general musing here, this is probably the biggest decision we're going to make.
Yep.
And I am the only person on this table that has openly debated the point. This is going to leave the impression to the public, and it's coming up online already, that the decision was already made by most people around this table before they came in. There has not been a debate.
Okay. What?
Go to the vote, but this is not going to look good.
I'm not sure what
Well,
the
we're
debate
meant
is
to
particularly. This is an individual choice
Yeah.
that we're all having to make it.
If you were employing somebody, when I employ somebody at work, we generally interview them, at least two of us in the room. After the candidate's gone, we sit there and have a discussion about each candidate. That's a debate.
Okay. Okay.
You discuss the merits of the candidates. That's kind of what I expect us to do here.
Okay.
I mean, if nobody else is willing to say anything, that's fine. Let's move to the vote.
Ask Keith the protocol, because what he's saying, our protocol is not what he would like.
Well, I'm just surprised that they just had a big decision and nobody's willing to say anything.
Look, it's never done that way, is it? It just hasn't been done that way. It doesn't.
Is it
Can't be.
Is this why so many people have got the idea that co-option is just a dark, smoky room with people running their friends?
Well, because normally it's a closed vote.
Yeah.
Normally it's a.
But then the process really is deeply flawed, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But my point is, sorry, Kelly, I will come to you in just a second. my point is that like this isn't necessarily a debate in the sense that we're all trying to come to a consensus and we're all arguing different points. We've all seen the applications. We've all seen, we've all heard the two candidates speak. We all know the process. We all have our own opinions on the process. I'm not sure that there's a great deal to debate. And personally, I don't feel comfortable arguing the merits of Kevin over Steve while Kevin and Steve are sitting there. I don't think that's particularly a great thing to be doing. I hear what you're saying, but I'm not sure that there is a debate on this particular point, to be honest. Kelly.
So, the same as everyone said about being slightly uncomfortable, and I really love the fact that you represent people that might not be well represented here. Without having a debate on it and arguing over the merits, I would, for Steve, for example, I love the fact that he is really enthusiastic about the Youth Council, and that's really big for me. I think the youth would be a huge part of what we need to be focusing on. It's really, really important. So that is it. There's such good candidates in different ways. One question I would like to ask, Kevin, if that's all right, is I understand that who you represent and who you are, and that's brilliant. Is there something that you're particularly passionate about, something that you would like to bring? Because that's the only bit that I wasn't sure about. Maybe I've missed it.
I've lived in Bude forever, and I go back to councils where people had roast dinners sitting around the table, and there were accusations of councillors making death threats to other councillors. And a thing that was called the rude way was once
The good old days.
the good old days, yeah. And I've taken interest in local politics and national politics, but I've never felt that I wanted to sit around that table particularly. And then we had the last election for Bude Town Council, and it was a bit of a change in the guard. Now, I believe that many of the things that this council wants to take forward are exceptionally positive, especially as far as bringing in the community is concerned. But from a distance, and with that sort of not being in the club, being outside the club looking in, I see missteps being made. And I think to myself, if I were around that table, that particular misstep would have been at least flagged up. So I'm not here as a wrecker, as somebody with sort of interest with old councils or groups within the community which are hostile to the main thrust of what the council is trying to do. I am here from a different section of the community to most of you, but with good intentions for the direction that this council, and hopefully being able to put in a little chipping word here and there. Well, maybe that's not just a great idea because that's not the way it used to be done, and these people get upset about it, and people who've got St. Turn's banner on their jackets won't like that. And just a little nudge here and there. I'm not saying that people around the table can't do that, but I'm saying that maybe I'll do it as well, because maybe I'm not rubbish, you know. But that's my motivation, not a wrecking motivation, not a huge, great sack of agendas to carry forward. Just a helpful hand. Yeah, facilitate, that's it. Facilitator and advocate for the people here. People are here, hello, I want to be your advocate. I'm sure the other gentleman would be equally fair.
Thank you.
Okay. Alex, and then
Yeah, I just wanted to say essentially the same as everyone else, but we are in danger of not having a lot of representation around this table and becoming an echo chamber, which is really worrying. And it would be nice to see someone from a different viewpoint having kind of a fresh kind of view on certain things. I think that's really important to know. As I've kind of said before, but just to kind of really drive it home.
Thank you for that, I was going to say, or try and say a lot more eloquently. I think we need to remember that we're here to try and do what the people of Bude-Stratton and Hill want, not what we want, which is a very important thing in making this decision. And we do have a little bit of a steer on this. One candidate has stood twice before and not been elected. So that is an indication of whether the public are buying what that candidate is selling. Worth bearing in mind.
next one. Simon, I'll come to you in a second.
I wasn't going to really express an opinion on the candidates. I take your point. For me, it's not. I'm not in a place where I want to be trying to persuade people to vote for Steve over Kevin or vice versa. But I just think I would mention, with your invitation, that Kevin, if you have any doubts, Kevin's been a really valuable member of the Environment and Climate Change Forum as a member of the public. It's been really valuable having there, and absolutely, rock solid and really useful contribution. So there's no doubt on that score that you make an absolutely fine councillor. I'm sure Steve would as well, but it's been great to have his. So what he's saying, that a slightly different voice, a slightly different view of things has been really, really valuable.
I'm just going to go on.
Yeah, I was just say frankly, that's exactly the kind of thing I was hoping to hear, because I've not worked with either one of them. Some of you have. It does help make a decision.
Yeah,
so thank you.
Steve, I think you wanted to come back, I guess, on what Mike said.
Well, I feel a little strange saying this, but my background, it's a bit strange having to go back to your background, where you come from. But I can say to you, I do come from a working class background. The only reason I'm here is I had to live at a time when, luckily enough, I got a really good education for free. And so, when I talk about my mum and dad moving to a new estate, that's them moving out of a slum, and it was a better place to go. So I have a pretty good idea about a kind of working class background. I'd say my mum's family were miners. I don't think you get much more working class than that. And in some ways that probably shaped me in many ways. Yeah, I have stood for election. I always stand for election. I can show you here road maps, which are maps of Hill Ward. And the only reason that I put these together was to stand for election. But I have no control over the will of the people of Hill Ward. I actually provided someone with a letter that you mentioned, with a little list of space for signatures. And I said, okay, if you want to do that, you go and do that. Yeah, I do stand for election. The last time I stood for election here, I was 12 votes short. Fundamentally, I want to get across the fact that I do stand for election. Yes, I have been. I have served because I've been co-opted, but there is no time that I haven't stood for an election before being co-opted into an area. And the second thing I want to get across to you is this is the circumstances, not my creation. And as councillors, we often deal with circumstances that are not of our creation, but we have to deal with them. That's what I want to say.
Thank you. Anybody else? Are we happy to move on? Okay. Alphabetically around the table.
I would suggest it's hand up for a particular candidate.
Okay, you want to do it that way? Okay, fine.
But then you need to keep your hands up for whatever.
So yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, okay, we'll go show of hands for each candidate then. So, hands up for Ken Caldwell.
Do you have 7?
Yes.
Thank you. Hands up for Steve Haynes.
Jackie, no.
Yeah.
Range is 3.
There's an abstention.
So 1, 2, 3, Chelsea. Is that everyone? 7, 3, 4.
Yeah, that's 11.
That's it. 7.
Yes.
There we go.
Kevin Caldwell is.
Kevin Cole is elected to Bude-Stratton Town Council. Thank you, Kevin.
You have a choice. You can either sign a form and become a member of the council immediately, or you can sit as you are and we can go through things next week.
I think perhaps I sit as I am.
Right, we go through inductions.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Item 11. Thanks for everyone. To review the list of working groups and forums and revise as necessary. So we've got in our papers a current list of the forums and working groups and their current status. How did you envisage this one? Do you want to go through sort of item by item?
Well, to be honest, if you don't mind, if I kind of cut it short and then councillors can. My recommendation is that the consultation forum doesn't really have a separate use. That consultations going forward would be taken by the group set up to do those particular bits of work. That was a bit of backward engineering, in my opinion, when we didn't actually have that other process in place. And I would also suggest that the Economic Development Working Group really hasn't been active, and by and large the town team and the councillors involved in the town team are kind of the lead. Okay. So I would suggest those two are ones that don't have a future. I think all the others are active or been more recently set up. A couple of them are a bit light on people, like Compass Point Steering Group, we are now down to 3 members. So I would suggest really that the others all have things that they are wanting to do, but I think it's important for you to kind of take stock of what groups are in place. And,
okay. I'll just make a quick start now. The Economic Development Working Group is something that we've, in various different formats, talked about at quite great length to try and figure out what it's going to be and how it's going to work going forward and what it might morph into and become. So we can either sort of leave it and work that out, or kind of close it down at this point and sort of then work on terms of reference for something new, which would be my personal preference on that particular one. Consultation, I tend to agree, because, well, I don't know, I'd be interested to see what other people say about that. But economic development, my personal feeling is that we kind of, knock that on the head at this point and figure out what it is that's going to be go to sign and then come to Philip.
Yeah, just a general point really, I would say, I think if the Environment and Climate Change Forum is the only forum with members of the public on, I would thoroughly recommend getting members of the public involved. I mean, from our point of view, it definitely keeps councillors on the best behaviour. It adds to the liveliness of the debate, and it kind of, not that we needed it, but it does kind of help people to make sure that it's more disciplined and the forums do meet, because it's much more visible to some members of the public in that way. So, and particularly if we're light on numbers in some cases, and just noting, Steve's kind of interest and capabilities around youth council, maybe that is the kind of expertise we could bring in the fire reform to kind of add some impetus where needed. So I would thoroughly recommend, where appropriate, inviting members of the public to serve on these fora.
Fora, nice. I agree. I think a lot of these fora it's correct. Look it up. They were set up initially with a sort of specific thing in mind, and then they were going to grow to become a kind of wider thing. And the things that they were initially looking at were kind of intra-council stuff, and then they were going to become wider. So I think you're right. Now is the point that we kind of widen them out and get those kind of other areas of expertise in on those fora. Yes.
In the paper that's coming up on the town vitality team, there's talk about a charrette type consultation, and also there's mention in the paper about potential extra spend from the Bude-Stratton Council to sort of support that consultation. So I suppose, given that it may be that in 10 minutes' time we commit to embarking on quite a big consultation, I wonder whether we could kind of maybe review the consultation forum after that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how we want to engage with the town team on that at the moment.
Yeah, I guess we will come to that in that item, but no, it's a good point. What's your thoughts on that?
It is a fair point. So it really, in my thinking, the way my thought process was that you will align a particular working group that's working on the whole of an issue to then oversee the consultation within that issue. And I'm aware, actually, because it doesn't really come through here, but I know the Will Sports Facility group have set up their own kind of public group, haven't you? So that's the way that's worked, rather than have another group of councillors trying to oversee the consultation around that. So that's why. So if you talk about the charrette and all that kind of approach, then I would suggest you have a group of councillors dedicated as in a group looking after that. So if you need a group, I would have it as that rather than as a consultation group that was doing
There's a group I
general.
would have that would potentially be the economic development forum.
You may wish to keep it, yes.
Yeah.
You may wish to say there's a role there, and then populate it with people interested in what it's now doing, as it were.
So might it be worth coming back to this when we know a bit more about what's happening with the town team and the charrette and so on? Because both of the ones that we're talking about potentially shutting down are the kind of key ones that might well be involved in that should it go forward. So
you can leave any of them or all of them active. You don't have to shut anything down, and as we said, then you can start another one next meeting, if you wish. So you've got options. It was just really, I thought it was useful for the council to be aware of what you were all currently committed to. And
yeah, I think it's useful to see it written down like that and see that I think the ones that you've said are not active. It's correct, they are not active at the moment, just they might be active again by the end of this meeting. Paul?
2 points. I would have thought the town team might have been put on there, is one point. And the Stratton Store thing, we can't hang around, we haven't had a meeting. I mean, that needs to be dealt with ASAP.
Yeah.
I mean, normally councils dilly-dally and take their time to do things. That's the nature of the beast, because it overcomes some problems. But in this case, we can't.
Well, I think on that, it's not particularly the place to talk about it now, I guess, but we were almost there with the suggestion for what we were going to do with that, and then it kind of got scuppered because we were thinking about other things. So I think we're almost there. I think.
Well, the public consultation, public involvement in that particular type of thing is vital.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So, we could. Do we need to do anything?
you don't. I mean, you can just note that these are.
Just note,
keep them as they are. I mean, I don't know if anyone wants to volunteer for anything else, or just say thank you. We'll keep on working on these.
We've lost members for the Environment and Climate Change Forum, and we've lost members for the Compass Point Steering Group. Would anybody like to put their names forward for those? Mike, vote.
Sorry, it's more a question on process. Obviously, we're looking for members to start in working groups and forums. Now that we've got a new council, could we actually speed the process up, and if he's interested in joining any of them, propose and second and meet him in now? Or
If
does
not,
he
not
have to sign
officially,
with
you've got to sign the form, mate.
Keeps doing that little no.
I'm just processing. You never know what the questions are going to be. I don't actually see a real problem, on the basis that none of these are doing any business tonight, and on the basis that actually Mr. soon-to-be councillor, he'll take, when he takes his seat, when he signs the form,
Find out what they
actually,
are first, I don't know, I think it was just a thought that fired through my mind.
I'm happy to take a slot on the Compass Point Steering Group or whatever its name is, if that's going to be helpful. I've taken a strong interest in that throughout, and a little bit of a background in some of the skills that might be useful for that.
And hopefully you'll stay on the environment and climate change.
If it's if it's deemed appropriate and the group doesn't become too councillor heavy, then I'm happy to remain on that.
Okay, I'll propose we add soon-to-be councillor Colwell to the Compass Point team.
Okay, and note the rest.
And know the rest.
Sean is Sean.
Can I please be on the
Oh,
Sit
I'd
group. I'd like to be part of that, if that's okay.
Where's that?
I'll second that.
Everybody happy with that proposal?
Yeah.
Everybody for?
you can.
I want to be in the group.
You disagree with that? Anybody against? Anybody abstaining? Thank you. Great. Okay, next item. To receive a recommendation from the town team on the application for and use of Cornwall Council's Town Vitality Fund. I'll say a few brief words on this, and then Linda, do you want to say a few words as well? And then we'll move on to questions. So this obviously comes from the town team. We've talked about this for quite a long time and what they're going to do with those funds after the triangle discussions, which we all had. Amanda and I obviously are now on the town team, so we've met up with the town team and looked at the bear with me a second, I'll come to you in a second. Looked at the application as it was, and the application as it now stands is looking to make an application to the Town Vitality Fund of £48,000 to commence with consultation. Wide consultation, noted in the application as similar to the Bodmin Charette time, I think. In order to do that to its fullest extent, it will require, may require, additional funding from us. But there are things that can be done for that initial 48k. So hopefully we'll see in the application, we'll sort of digested what's in there and what is now being asked for. I'll go here and I'll come to you. Okay.
I don't quite understand this. If you're on the town team, surely you can't be on the council talking about it at the same time.
I'm one of the council representatives to the town team.
Yeah. So who's on the town team then?
So there is Amanda and myself.
Yeah.
Peter,
So you're voting for yourselves, in other words,
voting to make it okay for the town team to make an application. I don't think there's a.
Well, just to clarify, the application is by the town council.
Okay.
So it's in our name. The town team are acting as our agents and representatives from different elements of the community, business community mainly. So they are recommending to the council this is the way forward, that it's the actual funding stream and contracts and such go in the name of the council. Therefore the council would need to resolve that. We're not giving anything to the town team.
Yep. So the funds would be town council funds if they're allocated.
So you've got, surely if somebody's got an interest in something, as you have obviously.
But I haven't got a personal, there's no personal interest in this.
How can you have, you've got basically you're running.
But there's no personal financial interest in that for me. It makes
Well, okay, fair enough, but I did promise you here and there in front of everybody, you tried bugging about with the triangle, and you lot will wish you'd never heard of it. I promise you that.
That's the point of the consultation. To do
You're going to waste £48,000 to be told nobody wants it. Bloody disgraceful.
Thank you. Kevin? No.
One of the missteps which I mentioned that I would try and steer the council away from is the town team's original project for the triangle. I don't see any appetite in the town for paving the triangle. I don't see any appetite for changing the traffic flow around the triangle, closing roads, making the triangle bigger. I don't see that that is a possibility. And I believe that at the original meeting some weeks ago, this council was a gatekeeper and could have closed the gate on the town team. It could have said, go away and think about a project and then come back and seek 40 whatever thousand pounds of funding. And I still believe that to be the case. But that was then and this is now, and things have moved on. And if we are seeking funding to really find out what the town wants to do with the triangle, rather than put forward the original flawed town team proposals, then if I were already a councillor, I would raise my hand up to support it. And from the floor, I would urge everyone to support it.
I'm just going to make the point that the application is not just about the triangle, it's about the vitality of the whole town centre. So it's going to look at all sorts of different options. It's not just to do with the triangle. That was the learning from that issue, was that we don't want to just focus on the triangle. We need to widen it out. So it's looking for opportunities for economic development and vitality for the whole.
If it is essentially getting 42k from Truro to ask people in Bude what they want to do with their town to make the town more vital and more viable, then that can only be the team.
I would say that's exactly what it is.
So what Bude people are on this town team then? What proper Bude people are on it?
The Hammerleys. And maybe shot one of the down as well, would too, but
Yes, I would say.
the descendants of.
Well, it gets you more than.
I think he's Chris now, but he's definitely one of his years views. I think.
Is there actually a publicly available list of who's on the town
Yes,
council?
there is. I don't have it to hand, but yes, there is. Yeah. Sorry, Barry.
Well, can we have it? Then we can go and hassle them.
It's on the
Yes,
I'm
no.
sure you can be provided with it.
You obviously would like to join, Mr. Jennings.
No, I
I would
wouldn't.
like to stand on the strand and.
Okay, Linda,
Yeah,
you say about the
sure.
application?
And I think Kevin kind of just alluded to what was driving this in the first place, and that was basically that we knew there were lots of pots of funding available from central government and from Cornwall Council, and whenever these funds came up, they were often on a short-term requirement for people to come up with a plan to apply for those funds. And as a town, we've been pretty behind in doing that.
Well, who gives you the right to speak for Bude? Are you elected by anybody? How long have you lived here?
Quite a long time.
How long?
16 years.
So you've been here 16 years?
Yeah.
And you've decided that you know what's best for the whole of Bude? Ah, it's bloody blind sort of
the meeting kind of protocol shouldn't really allow somebody to just speak over
Okay,
somebody
yeah,
else.
thank you. All right, thank you.
So just to come back to the purpose here, and that is to get access to funding that's available from central government and Cornwall Council. Bude has not been in a position to apply for that funding purely because it hasn't had a focal point around which to start to put a bid together or to put some ideas together. And so a group of people, including people who have lived here all their lives, of whom you will have a full list as requested, I am sure. It's on the website already, just need to check. We came together to see how we could get ourselves in a position where we were able to bid for some of this funding that was going to St Ives and to Falmouth and to Foy and even now to Bodmin and Newquay and Lawson, and we've just been overlooked. And the reason we've been overlooked is because nobody has put any effort into creating a plan that they can take to the council and say, look, here's another ready proposal, please give us some funding. So the town team came together, we came up with some ideas, we used all the ideas out of the strategic plan, we worked with BCCT, who were part of the town team, to look at all the projects that were already in the funnel, as it were. We had a simple voting mechanism, and the triangle came out top at that point. That then enabled us to put together a concept, which were the drawings that you saw in the meeting in February, which could then enable us to go to Cornwall Council and say, Bude's got an idea of something it could potentially do here. Here's the idea of the sort of thing Bude might be able to do. in order to see whether it's realistic, whether it's wanted, whether it's a valuable asset for the town, we need some funds, because you can't do these things on a shoestring. You can't do this based on volunteers.
Well, it isn't going to be an asset,
Mr.
it's going to
Jennings.
improve the town,
Thank
so
Mr.
what's the
Jennings.
point in getting the money just to ruin the town?
Mr. Jennings. Thank you.
And therefore, this concept was put together, it was presented to the council in February, it got a notional support that to go forward with an application was a good thing. So that went forward, we got the 48k, as you know. Well, we got it, we didn't actually get it, we actually got it kind of notionally allocated. So what we have to do is to put a proper application together. Now, in the meantime, we're very well aware of all the feedback that's come from a particular Facebook group, which has got a very focused view as to whether the triangle is a good thing or not. You cannot say that everybody is against it, because I know that there are lots of people who are positive about it. They just weren't maybe as vocal on that channel. So what we need to do is get a representative view from everybody. And therefore we've been talking to Cornwall Council, we've been getting ideas about what other towns have been doing. This idea of a charrette has come up from Bodmin Council. So Bodmin Council have done a wide-ranging consultative exercise which involved 350 local people to get some ideas, but frankly they've actually come up with nothing more than a concept drawing which we managed to get for free from the person who contributed to the town team. So the charrette's not a be-all and end-all, however it is a very good way of consulting with the town, but it will not give us a costed plan, it will not give us an audit, it will not give us full evidence to go forward. Therefore, this application that's come before the council now is to say, if Bude wants to look at how it can be considered for Cornwall Council funding for some of these big funds that are coming downstream, we probably need to put our own hand in our pocket to match fund some of the funds that are on the table from Cornwall to enable us to do a really valuable piece of work that will be able to give us evidence about how we could potentially revitalise our town. So that's the background and that's the context of the application that's come into the council.
Thanks, Linda. I'll just make one quick point as well in relation to the triangle, because I know that you're sort of worried about that. What we committed to initially when we had that public meeting here and everybody came about the triangle is, to be very clear, one of the options that will be on any consultation is to leave the triangle alone. It's as simple as that. Okay. So if that's the will, that's the will. So it will be there as a very clear option. Okay. I don't know about
the ladies first.
I'm really encouraged to see that this the form and to read it through and to see what I genuinely feel is a commitment to a proper piece of consultation on this. I think the idea of a charrette is great, and although, as you say, when you look at Bodmin charrette, there's nothing too concrete there, but at least you know that there's some backing for that, you know, that you've got some actual backing. I think that this is an opportunity, though, for Bude-Stratton Town Council, and particularly if we're going to be putting some extra funding into this, to be part of perhaps shaping the questions that are asked and the areas that are covered. I mean, I do understand that the purpose of this fund is for the vitality of the town centre. So I'm not going to be talking about, you know, let's add a question about the sand dunes or something like that. I understand that there is a bounded piece of work. But I just feel that with this amount of money and with our previous kind of desire to do some wide-ranging consultation, it's an opportunity that's almost too good to miss for this council to try, you know, and shape a good consultation, maybe with a consultation forum or something. I don't know. supporting yourself and Amanda from the turkey.
Thank you. Paul.
All I was going to say is, reading through it, the Bude is over 10,000 now, so we're eligible for more than 48,000. We're eligible for 100,000. So why are we applying for 48?
It's a fine question. Do you know why that was the fee?
I don't know why that was the fee. I think at the end of the last financial year, it was possibly an amount of money that was available, and therefore it was kind of allocated provisionally. But now, yeah, absolutely, we could potentially go back for more, I guess.
Well, a bit more background. That was always an up to. I was told very early on that you won't get the full
That's
amount.
what I thought, but I was just
And just the pot is the door is almost slammed shut. I mean, well, they're on their last dregs of this programme. They really do want to just close it, allocate it all and move on. So,
I'm just checking.
So it's what's left that's been allocated to us. If we don't take it, they will put somewhere else.
somewhere else,
yeah. But, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Anybody else? Okay. Then I will make the proposal that we approve the recommendation from the town team.
I'll second that.
There we go.
Can I just add,
Please.
is there some, I don't know, is there some mechanism by which we can shoehorn in the idea that Bude-Stratton Town Council is going to get another look at the shape of the consultation, or is that given?
No, I think there is. I mean, we're working quite closely with Chris Sim, who's the community link officer, and he's been very helpful, and he's pointed us in the direction of Lawson and what they're doing, and Newquay and what they're doing, and so on. So I think there's lots of information we can use, and to shape this.
Yeah, and the other thing to say is that this doesn't necessarily commit our match funding, so it is going to come back.
Yeah.
We can look at it again at that point.
And the purpose is really to secure the 48k, because as Keith said, if we don't do it quick, it's going to go somewhere else.
This gives our approval to put the name on the application as it stands on that paper, basically. So it will come back before anything is spent. Yeah. Okay. So I have a proposal. Second. Okay. Everybody for? That is everybody. Thank you. Good. Just remind me which one was. Is this still going? This one?
The next one's withdrawn.
The next one's withdrawn. Number 13 is withdrawn.
Do you want me to say anything?
I mean, is it going to come back? Do you want to say anything?
Yeah. What I wanted to say was the reason I withdrew this is because I think there's still some issues about the process around how we'd actually get this done, and I felt that at this point in time probably weren't ready to bring it forward. However, because the Gardening for Nature event is an event that has to take place in November or October, November, because that's when the trees are ready, or it has to take place in spring because that's when wildflowers are ready, then my proposal is that we won't get this ready in time now for that November window. I'll bring something back hopefully in the spring.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Okay, number 14, to agree the BSTC fund a pilot volunteer bureau run by Bude-Stratton Community Project at a cost of 4193 funded from reserve. So this came from the Grants Committee? Full Council, talking about grants. Okay.
Could you explain clearly so that our visitors here know exactly what it means by volunteer bureau?
Can anybody take that one, because I wasn't actually at the full council meeting, so
Correct.
I think I suggested that we take out the grants.
What does it mean? What does volunteer bureau mean?
So basically, if you find some volunteers, so the current car, imagine if you wanted to volunteer to help drive a cancer patient to hospital, we would approach the volunteer bureau, and they would basically link you up with someone who would have the free time to do that. It's and it was basically for any volunteer roles within charitable events or kind of organisations for putting those. It was basically a network.
Are people want to volunteering now? I could knock on doors and say, I'd like to volunteer.
No, it was actually where it came from was sorry. There was the Bude needs assessment that was done, and Tilly Falls, did also do something, and there was a list, I think, of 68 people that had said they were willing to volunteer, and they aren't at the moment.
Okay.
So there is the opportunity for volunteers to come forward.
Sorry, I know from the seat, people are always looking at the door wishing to volunteer.
It's nice around the seat, isn't it?
Not them all the way.
But they're not in the winter.
Yeah, people that wanted to knock all the stones, they wanted to stop them, they didn't until they turned up here and said, we would like to volunteer, they hadn't done
To
it
be a
before.
dog warden.
Yeah, to wood, didn't they? They were sat here. So they hadn't done before that, so that would be.
She must have gone to school with Stevie Wonder, I think.
So there's, I've got a bit more detail here from the initial application.
Thank you.
So it would base itself at Neatside Community Centre for a period of 6 months on a pop-up basis, opening 1 day a week, last Saturday morning of the month, coinciding with a repair cafe. The Bureau would be staffed by volunteers and would seek out volunteer opportunities and potential volunteers and link them up. The pop-up bureau would enable volunteer roles on offer to be displayed alongside the opportunity to discuss the role further and in person. Initially, a volunteer open day would be held at Neatside Community Centre to launch the volunteer bureau. Community organisations, groups, charities would be invited and have a stand at the event, and it'd be aimed at those interested in volunteering or finding out more about having volunteers in their organisation.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is there a breakdown of that cost and why it is that specific amount?
Probably.
It seems very to the pound.
It is to the pound, yeah. So it's designing the logo, etc., leaflets and posters printed, signage, open day room hire, Neatside staff support up to 50 hours at £11 per hour, sessional support work of Cornwall Council, some office costs in there for laptop, printer, phone, working space, a bit more there for the support work from Cornwall Council, and a little bit for volunteer expenses as well.
There would be
breakdowns there if you want to have a look. It's the right side on
for certain areas of volunteering, you would need to be DBS. Things like I said, is some of that money to get people who really want to volunteer DBS.
Interesting. Nothing that jumps out on there that to me.
And volunteer expenses and training.
When it does.
What's a DBS?
Yeah.
No, but I know how much.
About 30 quid
Is it?
per person, yeah.
It's a project,
Is it?
Sorry, Lorraine, what were you saying?
Yeah, Lorraine had a point she wanted to make.
Yeah.
Volunteer roles, the DBS is very.
Are they? Brilliant.
There you go.
Deal.
There you go. Okay. Alex.
I think it's a really good thing. I think it's positive for the community. I think it's going to network people who want to volunteer with volunteer opportunities. I propose to accept.
Yeah.
Is that where you're going from?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Great. Okay. Everybody for? Is that everybody? Splendid.
I can get people.
Shoot out the door. Okay, on to item 15, to discuss the local provision of debt benefit and housing advisory services. This has come from Councillor Clifford.
Thank you very much. Yeah, every time we turn on our TVs or radios at the moment, we hear about the cost of living crisis and the energy price cap, which will be rising in October, estimated by another 65%. It just feels like there's a storm coming, and there are going to be more and more people who are struggling to weather that storm. We know that families are already struggling. Anecdotally, the food bank are seeing more and more families, and donations going down. So it's going to become more and more tough, I think, for people to get through the winter. I have been talking to quite a lot of the agencies locally, so I've spoken to the CEO of Citizens Advice Cornwall, who was very helpful, Launceston Community Money Advice, Peter Green, who's trustee of Christians Against Poverty and Food Bank, and they provide a good service for people who go to the food bank. But again, it's slightly limited. I've spoken to Neatside, Job Centre, Naomi West at Village Works. So there is provision in the town, but a lot of it is not joined up. I think that's part of the problem, that a lot of agencies might signpost somebody to another agency and find out 6 months later that that hasn't been in place for like the last 2 years. So the various sort of areas don't necessarily link up as well as they could do. And also a lot of the provision is online, and that doesn't always suit everybody. The indication from citizen advice is that investment made in providing money and debt advice is paid back several times over. And they were saying that even remotely they dealt with 90 people in the year to March from Bude and have brought in £83,000 by helping them. So I believe that we've possibly greater sort of face-to-face provision and better signposting services that we could help people locally and feel it's something that we should do. So I think we could first better understand the needs in Bude-Stratton, in population, collate information and raise awareness of what's already there. Secondly, to bring those providers together, so there's a proper networking and help them to share information, keep everything up to date. That would be good. And thirdly, to identify any gaps and see about applying for funding to help to plug those gaps. So to be started as soon as possible.
Okay. So the proposal here is that we commission a study effectively to figure out how it would work, to come back to us at October's full council meeting. So a couple of months worth of working it out. So I guess my question would be, I'll come to you in a second.
Yeah, sure.
My question would be the proposed budget there, is that, what's that based on? Is there any breakdown of that?
That is based on daily rate and 20 days work.
20 days work for one individual?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Paul?
I'm surprised. I agree that there should obviously be a study to see what's going on, but I would have hoped county would have done that and were
Always hope, can't we?
I was hoping that they were fingers on the pulse. But obviously you're saying they don't, nothing coordinated at all.
Nothing seems to be very linked up.
Okay, well, obviously we need to do something. Yeah, go on.
Thanks, Paul. Louis?
It was county that pulled the plug on a one-stop shop.
Yeah. And citizens advice used to be here, but they struggle to recruit people, but they are actually saying that Bude is at the top of the priority list once they've dealt with a few other things.
Yeah.
So hopefully there would be someone in Bude doing face-to-face consultation one day a week.
Can I assume that Truro doesn't have a one-stop shop anymore and citizens advice has stopped in Truro as well?
Oh no, of course not.
Okay.
And our nearest physical person is Bodmin for citizens advice,
Really?
which is fine if you can get there.
Bad voice.
I just asked one other question before I come to you, Sean, if I may. Is there any additional workload for council staff for this? Is that anything we need to consider?
I don't believe so.
Well, there'll be a little bit just in terms of turning those words into the brief.
But not in terms of administering the project. We're not committing council time. It's just one.
Well, we'll have a lead councillor or two, I think, who have to take the.
I'm prepared to do all the work
the actual,
to liaise with whoever
I mean, there's always
do that and work with them.
I mean, yeah, dare I say, yeah, it's a good question because everything you decide, virtually everything you decide, does give us some work, because
That's good.
there will be work. It's busy. So it makes we will have to let a contract, find the person to deliver this. But my expectation is that the detail of what they're finding goes back to council.
Okay, and you're comfortable with it within the work schedule?
As it currently is looking, I can live with it.
That's the whole point.
A ringing endorsement.
Yes.
That's the whole point of trying
Well, I don't know what you're going to decide next, do I?
outsource, so that we don't say, here's another project.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you fit this in somewhere? It's like, let's just think where we can do, how we can do this elsewhere.
John?
I was just going to say, completely for citizens' advice, and we kind of discussed an idea like this. I didn't realise you were tabling this, but basically there's a need. It's really tiny, and if we can commission this study, I think we need to crack on and go ahead with it, so we can actually start to get, you know, some money allocated back to the people who need it, or help, or whatever it might be in person, because that's definitely missing. So yeah, plenty of things.
I was just going to say, we should let our MP know exactly what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Because
Oh, yes.
we're left out.
We should publicise this very
Yeah.
widely.
Yeah, it's awesome.
We have that in as a letter.
Simon.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Sean said, really, it's a really powerful way to get, you know, people the benefits they're entitled to that may not be able to apply for themselves for whatever reason. These things are very complicated, and it gets a lot, for very little cost, gets a lot of money into the right places, exactly where it's needed. So, yeah, they're really behind it. We know other councils have done something similar with massive success.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Kelly?
Well, just say we could also liaise up with the volunteer aspect, because I know people that volunteer to help people fill out forms and get the right thing. So get that all together. And
apparently in the library there used to be a volunteer there that would help people with, to go online and apply for badges.
Yeah, so my friend
or whatever,
does
but that service isn't there anymore.
yeah,
So there's just another thing that isn't
mesh.
Yeah, and also, I mean, just to add something else, in the last day, Keith had something through from South West Water about helping people with their bills and possibly discounts of up to 85% for means-tested benefit recipients. I don't know what the detail of that is, but there is help there, but it's signposting that help for the people that need it.
It can be very obscure, can't it? Joanne?
I haven't actually thought this through, so this might come out and I might get to write it down. Is it worth us considering moving the councillor to the triangle? Not necessarily weekends, so I haven't actually thought it through, but we could, if someone was prepared to sit there under a gazebo with a sign saying council, we could have the housing forms there, my health staff, not mine, sorry, our health staff, sorry, and getting people's opinions. That as well.
Yeah, we could possibly move it around the locations. I think one thing we've discovered recently with some of the stuff you've done at the festivals, and I've been doing the skate park one, is if we go to where the people we need to talk to are, we get a hell of a lot more engagement than just saying, we're going to come and see us.
Yeah, well, I think that's
So
what
it
it's
might be
initially.
worth,
I think,
you know.
I think now it's established, sorry. I think now it's established, and some people know about it. I think, yes, it would be really good to change the format a little bit.
I think it was always a bit of a trial, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We'll try it out. And it's definitely started to drop off, people coming there.
Let's evolve what we're doing.
We said we would review it after 4 months, I think, so maybe we could review it earlier than that.
Well, I don't think we need to necessarily resolve anything to do that. It's just something that we kind of plan, you know, on a week by week basis, isn't it? So we can just do that.
Yeah.
Cool, like it.
For the record, I will be at Wales in a couple of weeks' time, and I will be off duty.
Good luck with that, mate. Good luck with that. Okay, anybody else on that one? Anything else on the Debt Benefit Housing Advisory Service? Okay, I'm going to propose that we accept no, we're not accepting the recommendation. That we, what's the word?
Commission study.
Commission a study, thank you.
Have you got a second?
It's on its way.
There's 3,500.
3,500.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Sorry? Does that need to be on
We'll put that in.
the, you have to put that in the wording?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Budget up.
Second in that, okay, everybody for? That is everybody, thank you. Brilliant, okay. Item 16, bank mandate to authorise new signatures of signatories of the council's bank accounts.
I'm just saying, we've lost one, so if a councillor who's able to be available to pop in at times and sign cheques.
Jackie's got a hand up.
I'm happy to do that if somebody else would like to do that.
I second councillor.
There was a rush there.
Is there anyone needed?
If anyone really wants, no, there are a number of councillors, but so it's having people who are available.
So just replacing one who's no longer from the.
That's the thing, I'm only in things here and I could just be here in 5 minutes, so just for further future if needed.
Well, we may as well put you on as
It's fine, that's
Is that okay? Is that acceptable? Okay, everybody for Lorraine. Splendid, thank you, Lorraine. Okay, okay. Right, and final item, financial report. Schedule of payments already made, 24th of June to the 14th of July. Any comments? Okay, I
almost feel like you ought to mention ours and just...
I was going to abstain just in his honour.
As he's not here.
Okay, so we've got a proposal to accept.
Yeah.
Paul? Yeah, I'll second that. Everybody for? That's everybody, thank you. Oh. Oh.
Oh, I was going to abstain, so I literally just missed that.
Yeah, well, to abstain.
Want all the jobs, Abby. That's what you.
And finally, schedule of payments made on the 15th of July 22. Any comments? Second that, okay, everybody for? And that is everybody this time. Okay, that's that, and with that, 7:37. The meeting is closed.
Yeah, exactly.